The secret to overwhelming joy, using what we have for His glory. Now, everybody wants to know the secret to overwhelming joy, so I'm glad you're tuning in. Listen, folks, life is temporal. And what we have been given always gets old and fades away. It does. Old cars, old houses, etc. Doesn't matter. Today I want to look at a byproduct of the act of inviting God to work through us. That's where the excitement is. This byproduct is the joy of the Lord and overwhelmingly blesses us. As Christians, we often miss this, so let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to Reason for Truth. You know, truth comes first. We back it up with some reasons, and then we give you what we listen. We do our homework, and we make sure that we learn well. We learn well, we teach well, and then everybody learns well. And that's the bottom line for Reason for Truth. Listen, there's no experience on earth that compares with being close to God and having the Spirit of God working through us in our God mission calling. And a perk for you and I doing so is the real secret to overwhelming joy. In today's episode, I want to contrast the human desire to amass wealth and power, both of which are really, I think, artificial fillers for happiness, and mine down to the simpler truth of obtaining joy and peace, true joy and peace in life, which only comes from God as the ultimate source. Looking back in history thousands of years, even the Egyptian kings and the queens, with all their gold, didn't take any of it with them. They thought they could take that status and those things with them, but they thought they could, take boats and cats and all kinds of utensils with them. Look at that, the Egyptian tombs. Man, that was thousands of years ago. I think they probably woke up in eternity and went, oh, well, didn't get that one right. Well, that's why we look to the Bible for truth. But these facts make clear that such efforts turn out for them, and if not careful for us, if we're not believers in Jesus Christ, to be nothing more than foolishness. The fact of life is that more often than not that's overlooked is the simple truth that there is more to life than money and power. Some people can say, really? Well, let me hear about that. The more money and power one has, the more responsibility to use such gifts properly. There's a lot of people. I mean, like 60% of people who win the lotto regret within 3 years, 5 years of ever winning the lotto. Because it changes their life, and everybody comes after them, wants their money. There's a lot of responsibility to having wealth. And if we don't use it to God's glory and really moor ourselves in His Word, we're going to get off track. And this is a very weighty responsibility to be wealthy and to have power that most people, by the way, can't handle. Just saying, most people can't handle, without abusing it, power and wealth. It's just human nature, it's sinful nature. But God has gifted a few to do it right, and we're grateful for those. Each and every one of us, by the way, has been given gifts. You've been given gifts. I've been given gifts. We've been given abilities, capabilities that give us the advantage against others to perhaps compete for jobs, sports, maybe to attract a spouse of our choice. People say, that's kind of, Steve, I don't know about that. That's just God's doing. Well, God often gives us gifts and talents to do so, and that's part of His plan. Looking to the ancient scriptures, and in case of 2 Samuel, really what we find is a fighting warrior. Remember him? Descendant of the giants, was gifted. What was he gifted with? 6 toes at each feet, 6 fingers at each hand. And some of you are going to say, oh, come on, Steve, is that really giftedness? Yeah, for those days, they weren't the information age. They weren't sitting at some computer somewhere. If you're a giant guy with 6 digits, man, on the feet and the hands, you're bad to the bone. Some may call this a deformity, but in the ancient world, in hand-to-hand combat, having an extra digit again on each appendage was a massive advantage in warfare. To be fair now, historically speaking, this may very well have been Goliath, who was most likely a Nephilim. And you can read about Nephilims in the Bible, giant creatures, people, right, humans or spiritual beings. Some believe that this section of Samuel was wrote about by second character, and it's a copyright error. And in 2 Samuel, you can look through those textual criticisms to be debated. That being said, the lesson is the same in that this giant was given a massive advantage as a soldier of a massive size, not typical human size, and he had these extra digits. That's the point here. It's in God's Word, and we accept it as such. This condition is called polydactyly, the term which someone has extra digits or fingers and toes. It's often used of when a child's born, but that's the condition. It usually means that a baby is born with at least 6 fingers on both hands and 6 toes, on each of their feet. with these extra digits, larger weapons, going back to Goliath, these larger weapons can be carried, with, listen, greater traction. They're able to handle them better. That's a pretty big thing. You think we just think of that as now, all right, I got to get your finger, man. I want to go open a door handle. Well, think about then. They didn't have Humvees, guided missiles or, 50 caliber sniper rifles. Man, when you had 6 digits, that gave you huge. Then 6 toes, you had better traction. That was like super weapon back then. Think about a 6-wheel bush hog vehicle. You ever seen those on TV? They go out in the bush. You ever seen a 4-wheeler? How about when they go way into the swamps of Louisiana? They don't take any 4-wheeler. They take a 6-wheeler. Why? Because you got that extra digit, man, on each side. It gives huge. It's more like a tank. It goes right through the mud, 2-3 feet deep. And in such cases, these extra digits, by the way, is seen as a tactical advantage, period. Such as an advantage that could be good for God's good. It could also be used for evil. With Goliath, it was done for evil. Such a condition was considered a gift. Let's read verses in 2 Samuel to see what it has to say. It says this: there was again war in Garth, where there was a man of greater stature, who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was a descendant of the giants, the Nephilim, right? And when he taunted Israel, which was evil, Jonathan, the son of Shimel, David's brother, struck him down. These 4 were descendants of the giants of Gath. Gives you a little history here. And they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. 2 Samuel 21, and then 20 on. Okay, listen. But so what? In 2 Samuel, I know what you're thinking. So what? Steve, I don't have 12 digits, on my hands. I don't have 6 on each, 6 toes. Yeah, I wasn't born thousands of years ago. Well, God always has a lesson for us, right? That's the point. It's not that we have 6 toes and 6 fingers. Probably, thankfully not. But in 2 Samuel, we just read it. By the way, let me pause a minute. Can you imagine typing with 6 fingers on each hand? I wonder if that would be better. You might be able to go do like 200 words a minute. I don't know. Anyways, in 2 Samuel, we just read about the descendant of the giants who had 6 toes on each foot and 6 fingers each hand. And now we have established that this condition gave this great fighting man the ability, that the giant fighting man with 24 digits, to be used for good or bad, right? We know that. Anything can be used for good and bad. Guns are not evil in and of themselves, but when they're in the hands of the enemy, they're used for bad. When they're, for evil men and women, they're used badly. Whether that's a hammer, a gun, a car, an airplane. But what does this mean for you and I? Well, in application, the same is true for you and I as in lesson, God's moral principles. As individuals, and that we also have God-given skills and giftedness. We may not have 12 digits, but we do have other gifts that God gives us today. And as all time in history, we could read about spiritual gifts in the Bible, but there's also natural abilities and talents, those opportunities God gives us, different things from gifts to talents to spiritual gifts, different things, 3 different things. And we as well have a choice. We can either use our own gifts for good or bad. We can also have the choice to use those gifts the Lord has bestowed upon us for His glory, not our own. So when we use those gifts to God's glory, His Spirit does what? It flows through us. And what do we experience? The overwhelming joy of God right here on earth. So let's just pause for a moment. And I want to challenge you to stop, inventory how you look at things, how you've been gifted, and how are you using those gifts to the glory of God. And then ask yourself, should or can you be doing more for His kingdom with those gifts that you currently have? I'm not just talking about money and resources, but also about your time, your skills, your experience. Let's be mindful of the truth that our negation to do good with what used for God's glory may contribute to the bad through omission. So let's make sure to use our talents, our giftedness to God's glory. That doesn't mean that we can or shouldn't enjoy life, because we should. Listen, enjoy sunset, go out on the water. If you've got a boat, enjoy it. Just use all those things for God's glory, right? Put God in front of all things. And as Christians, we have a mission calling, and that mission means that we as Christians are no further from God's kingdom as He has called us than anybody else. Whether you're rich or poor, you're just as close to death in the next second and being in His presence. I'm going to give a guy, someone who's a billionaire, and you have someone that's completely in the streets and poor. They both have the same amount of lifetime span. Okay? Often the wealthy have a little bit more time, but not much. But in the end, if you're going to do this, God, I promise you, is going to work through you. So by inviting God to work through you, the joy of the Lord is going to be overwhelming. It's going to bless you. And let me tell you something. There ain't no trip in the world. There's no material thing you can buy. I'm just telling you, trust me, that's more exciting than that, and it brings more joy. There's no experience on earth that compares with that, and that's the secret to overwhelming joy. And I want to leave you with the words of the Apostle Paul, who said this in Romans 15. May the God of hope fill you with what? With all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit, you're going to experience all that hope, and all that joy is going to flow from that. Romans 15:13. That's all I'll say for today. You really want to get better equipped, check out equippedacademy.com. Great courses on there. We got a new one called up. It's going to explain about what is money, why we're experiencing these crazy things, and why gold is real money, why paper money is fake money. You want to check that out. Also, join my community. We got stuff there we don't put anywhere else. Just saying. StephenGarofalo.com. And then before you leave, subscribe, hit the like button, share it. Boom. We'll see you at the next video. I'm your host, Stephen Garofalo, and this is your Reason for Truth for today.